Your grandmother McDonald?
Yes, grandmother.
What do you want me to tell you about her?
Where was she born?
She was born in Oban, Richmond County, in 1898, I believe, John. I'm not sure about that.
98?
You open the family Bible, you'll find out. She was born in Oban, Richmond County. And she had five brothers, no sisters. She's the youngest of the family. And her mother was a McKay, Barbara McKay. She was born in St. George's Channel, on the same farm that we're on now. And her father was John Stewart, and he was born in Oban. And his father came over from Scotland. And I don't think his mother came. I don't know if she died or
Her mother?
his mother,
Oh, his
John Stewart's mother. But his father came over. And his mother's mother came over. She was a Nicholson. And she came over and they're buried in Oban Cemetery. She was born, she was a McKay from St. George's Channel. She was one of the McKays, one of 16 in the family. Oh, that was the story that Grandmother Stewart told us, that when she was a little girl, the Indians used to come to St. George's Channel to camp on the shores in the summertime, and they'd go up in the woods to get a certain kind of wood to make baskets. And as a little girl, she played with the children. And at that time, there was a family not far from where my mother was born that had a baby out of wedlock, one of their daughters had a baby out of wedlock. And of course in those days it was a scandalous thing, it was terrible. So they gave the baby to the Indians. And that was one of the little girls that used to play with my grandmother on the shores. But the Indians were not very good to her. And so she went to some neighbor here in St. George's Channel, and she was friends with them. And she told them that the Indians weren't good to her, and she didn't want to continue going with them. They went from place to place, and she didn't want to go with them. So, and they said they couldn't keep her because the Indians would find her and take her. So she coaxed them, and they decided to put her in the chimney. That's the only place they could put her that they wouldn't smell the smoke off her, smell her. And so they hid her. Wasn't there. So they came back a few times before they left. And she understood them, the Indians. And so they hid her. Wasn't there. So they came back a few times before they left. And she understood them, the Indians, she understood the language, and they said that if they found her, they were going to kill her. So anyway, they didn't find her, and they left. And so she grew up, and she went to the States, and she married very well. And my grandmother went to see her several times when she went up there to work. And then my mother went to see her, and she was quite elderly then, and she had 2 boys. And they wanted to come to Cape Breton to see where their mother was born, and she wouldn't take them because she didn't want them to know what happened to her when she was a little girl.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm not going to answer for you anymore. So, yeah, sad. Grandmother Stewart going to Boston. She went to Boston in the wintertime. And she worked up there, and then she came home with her mother and father to work on the farm in the summer. No, she went alone. Her brothers were up there. She had 2 brothers up there. And she went up there, and she worked in the winter, and then she came home with her parents in the summertime. Her parents were down here. She came home and helped them on the farm.
Teenagers?
Yeah, I suppose she was. Maybe she was in her 20s or early 20s when she went up there first. She worked in a restaurant.
She didn't want to stay in Boston.
No, I don't think she was too interested in staying in Boston. As far as I know. I don't know too much about my dad, Sandy, John. Dad died when I was 3, so I really don't remember him.
What did he die from?
A ruptured spleen. He fell on the ice. He was coming in, and he had a wood stove, and he picked up a carload of wood, and he was coming in, and he fell on the ice, and a stick of wood hit him on the side, and ruptured his spleen. He thought he was in bed for about a week and not feeling well, and the doctor said it was the flu. So he got up on a Sunday morning. He was up for just a very short time. And he asked my mother for a drink of water, and she went to get the water, and she back in his bed. So the blood clot out of went through his heart and his brain. At 30, just 30, I think. Oh yeah, that was the time that before he died, she heard a knock at the front door. And she went to the front door, and there was nobody there. After he died, she heard the same knock at the door. And apparently people didn't go to the front door at that time. They always came to the back door. And it was someone came up from Hawkesbury with a telegram telling her that John Duncan was coming home.
Who was John Duncan?
That was Dad's brother. He knew he was from Westmont. One Grandmother Stewart and Grandfather Stewart, when she was married first, they were in bed. One thought the other was asleep, and my grandmother, she heard somebody running up the stairs and coming into their bedroom, and she had a trunk in the bedroom, and she heard them lifting the trunk and it banging down and running down the stairs again. She got scared. And she whispered to Grandfather, said, "John, are you awake?" And he said, "Yes, I'm awake." And she said, "Did you hear that?" He said, "Yes, I heard it." And he said, "You're going to hear somebody's death." And the next day, somebody came to the house and asked Grandmother for a sheet, that their neighbor was drowned, and came and asked her for a sheet. She ran upstairs, and and she raised the trunk and took the sheet out and banged it down and ran downstairs. That was it. Oh, about the lady that worked in the States, Mary Mackenzie. She worked in the States, and whoever she worked for used to read teacups. So they taught her to read teacups, and they read teacup, and they told her, they described her father and mother to her, and what kind of a place she came from. And they told her that her father had whiskers, and he was sitting at a table. There was a stove in the room, so it would be kitchen. And there was an elderly lady with a long dress, and she was kind of short and plump, and that there was somebody coming down the lane to their house with a violin case in his hand. So in those days there wasn't telephones or anything, it was all mail. So she didn't know, she asked her if anyone in the family played the violin, and she said no. So she didn't know who that could be, so she wrote home and she asked her mother in the letter if somebody came to their house with a violin on a certain day. And her mother wrote back and said, yes, Robbie, that was her brother, bought a violin home. He bought it from somebody and he took it home. So anyway, I guess this lady was very good. So she taught this Mary how to read teacups, and everybody would want their teacup read from her, like she was so accurate. And she told my uncle about going to a sacrament, and who we went with, and described what the woman looked like. It happened to me, Mom, and my uncle didn't even plan to go at the time. And
Sacrament?
Yeah, sacrament. They used to go. That could be for a whole week. They used to have them in those days for a whole week.
It was a religious gathering?
Yeah. And they went from from different communities. There'd be hundreds of wagons, I guess, there. So anyway, she described the place that he stayed and all that. But anyway, when Mom got married, she went down home, and she was going back, and they called in at this Mackenzie place, and they wanted her to wait for a cup of tea. Mom said no, that they had to be home before dark. And so she said, oh, well, just wait for a minute and I'll make a cup of tea. I want to read your cup. So, of course, Mom waited. And she read Mom's cup first. Mom said the only thing she could remember was she told her that she was going to have 4 children. And after she read her cup, she read Dad's, and whatever she told them. And she said, you're going to have 3 children. And she kind of stopped and looked, she said, I can't see anything more. And she put the cup down. So, and Mom just laughed about it at the time. That she was going to have 4 and he was going to have 3, They had outdoor services. Like now, they used to have them down at the points, this church down there. They'd have them down there. And they had them at Black River, over North Watch. And they had them down at the church down here at the points, the church Mom went to. They used to come from Loch Lomond and all those, St. Peter's, Millica Watch, over Marble Mountain, West Bay, all those places. They'd come by boat if they could come by boat, and they came by those that couldn't come by boat, they came by wagon. and they stayed at different places. The Sunday was the real big day, and it would be an all-day service. And then they'd go to different houses around for a meal. And my great-grandfather used to stand down on the road, and as the teams were going by, he'd wave them up to go up to the house for their dinner. And I guess they used to have an awful crowd at the house, but they prepared for it. I wouldn't doubt it might have been in July or August. It would be after they planned it, and maybe before hay, before the meeting.
They were what, Pentecostals?
No, the Presbyterians. I think there was a lot of good times. Uncle Dan was home from Vancouver some few years ago, and he was talking about going over to Milwaukee to one of those sacraments, and they stayed at his aunt's place, Christy McRae, Christy's grandmother's place, and there was, I guess, a dozen or so girls, and a dozen or so boys. There was a big crowd, and my aunt had all the boys over one side of the house. You see, there was two stairways going up, in two parts of the house, in those old houses. And the women were over on the other loft, in the other part of the house. So anyway, they all went to bed and everything was quiet, so the boys thought they were going to go over and see the girls. So they sneaked over to the girls' apartment or rooms, and they got over there. They weren't there very long when my aunt came up and marched them off to bed. No, that was just before my time. Oh, it was 1900s. I suppose it might have stopped maybe when the war started in the 30s. When the cars came, different things going on. I've forgotten a lot about it. Yeah, that's something I wanted to forget. I don't want to dwell too much on it. A lot of my childhood, I was in the same, at the last stop. I was in 2 or 3 times, but they weren't, in those days they didn't do very much. So then when I went to Kent, I was there must have been there over a year. Well, it was for years, John. There was no cure until they got Chuck-and-Ice, and once they got that, it just cleared it right up. And now it's coming back now and they say there's no strain that there's nothing for it. Yeah, well, I went up to doctor. Yeah, I went up to Halifax to the course, secretarial course. And Dad was in New Brunswick, and he got a job in Halifax, and he called me up one day and told me he was going home for the weekend, wanted to know if I wanted to drive. So after that, I went home every weekend that he went home, I went home. So that's the start of that. Oh, he went home just about every weekend in the summertime.
A lot of driving from New Brunswick.
No, he was in Halifax time. He moved to Halifax. No, he didn't call me from New Brunswick. No. From Halifax. He just moved down and I'm on that.
He was working at the dairy?
He was working at the dairy, Maple Leaf. And he and Robert and Charlie Myers well, the 4 of us, we went home all the time. sometimes Oregon West. And we went every weekend. Oh no, not Oregon West didn't go, it was Carter Hennessy. It was Carter and Charlie and Robert and Elliot and I, 5 of us. Went every weekend. I was in Halifax until the year you were born, August. You were born in '64, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we moved in August of '65 to Sydney. When did I move there? It was in '54.
You were in Oxford before that?
Yeah, I was home in Oxford.
What were you doing?
I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't out of the hospital that long.
Oh, I see.
That was wonderful.
Yeah, you're doing questions.
Well, the first John McCathers got a grant. I have a deed for the property here, and it's like in 2 parts. The lower part towards the water up to hectares, and from hectares out back. And one part is deeded to John McKay, and the other part is deeded to John H. McKay. And when I seen it, I mentioned to Annie Williams that I bet that was 2 different McKays. And John McKay, my great-grandfather, was supposed to have come over here when he was 12 years old. And he came with his sisters. And they had a little cottage, a little shack down at the beach when they came first, and then they had another one right up here. And so I want to know where his mother was, where his father was. Nobody seemed to know, and of course my grandmother was gone, and she wasn't there to tell me, and Mom didn't know. So anyway, they started, some of the people got on the internet, and they found out that John's father and mother were over here before they came, which I wasn't surprised at. And so he bought the land, from hectares down to, and then when his son got bigger, he bought the back land, that part of it. John H. That'd be my great-grandfather. No, they didn't come on the hectare. They didn't come on the hectare. I don't know what they came on, but it wasn't me. I don't think they came on the hectare. But now they're talking about, Elliot McKay said, he said the old man was buried down in McKay Cemetery. He said he couldn't have been because they didn't have the McKay. The son is buried down there, and then his son and his wife, but and some of their sisters. But they didn't have the McKay Cemetery at that time. But they buried the people, on the land. So he very well could be buried here. And, Us. Okay. It's Thomas and Annie. That's one generation. You're the second generation. I'm the third. Grandmother's the fourth. My grandmother's the fifth. And her mother and father the sixth. That's 6 generations. Her grandmother was born, her grandfather and grandmother weren't born here, no. Her mother and Mom's grandmother and grandfather weren't born here. Her grandmother was a Campbell from Milliken, and she came over from the old country, I guess when she was small. And her father was Charles Owen here. I don't know, I think it was up north. What's the name of one of those places up north? I was trying to think where the Stewards came from, and I think it's up around the same place the McCabe's came from. Where I say no. I have quite a history on the McCabe's.
Yeah, you have that written down somewhere.
Yeah, I have it all. No, I didn't have any electricity when we were growing up. No indoor plumbing. Just oil lamps. Yeah, we had a pump. And do you remember when there was no bathroom?
No, I remember a bathroom inside.
Yeah, well, it was, it must have been in the 40s, John. When we got the lights. Yeah, Malcolm McRae put the lights in for Mom. And I remember she had no stove in the dining area of the house. It used to be cold there in the wintertime. She'd almost have to close it off. And so she was up in Boston one year, and Dad and I bought an oil stove. She always said you couldn't put one in, because you'd have to put a pipe right across to where the kitchen part, where the flue was. So Dad and I got the stove, and Malcolm McRae put it in for us. So he put the flue the pipes right across, and the whole was lovely. Nice and warm. And she came home, and we had the house all open, and she was there for a long time. She never noticed the stove. Yeah, seaweed. Not seaweed, sawdust, I think.
What was that for?
Keep the house warm, because there was no foundation on it. And you remember when there was no lamps. Do you remember going to a wedding anniversary down the country here? We took you and Sandy, and there was no lamp, there was no electric light.
I do remember it.
Yeah, that's the first time that you fellas ever seen oil lamps. And it was their 60th wedding anniversary.
Who were they?
At McDonald's. And I still talk to her daughter all the time, Margaret Egan. And we were there, and I remember they lived quite far off the road. And there was no electric lights even down on the road, but it was so dark down that lane. So I remember going out that night. We had to walk down maybe as far as the turnoff down here to get to our car. And when we got outside, I couldn't tell you what way to go. It was so dark. It was something like when I went to Bruce Mines first. How dark it was up there. She lived with us, and in the winter time, from the time we were married. And then when the pulp mill came to Hawkesbury, there was a lot of new people moved in. And they're over Warner's, way over from where she lived, across the field. It's called in Bootleg. And they used to go over there at night and get liquor. And started coming over and sitting on Mom's doorstep. And she got scared. She decided to sell. So then she came to live with us permanently. And I remember they used to call the mountains to raid them and all this. And the mommies could never find the liquor. Mom said she came and asked me, I probably know it was. She'd see them at night in the attic in the barn. That's where they kept it. And that's where they did it. Because you couldn't get liquor at night.
Oh,
And one time you had to have a permit to get liquor too.
yeah.
During the war, yeah. Prohibition was when we moved to Port Hawkesbury first after Dad died. We were in a duplex, and on the other side was a Mountie and his wife, and his name was Elliot McDonald too. And he used to go to St. Peter's and all places around, you know. And if he had any news to tell Mom about St. Peter's seat, and she'd go in the evening and he'd tell her. And they'd get word that there was a lot of liquor coming over the ferry. And they'd go down and sit at the ferry all evening or all night. There'd be no liquor come across. As soon as they went home, the liquor came across. And but the fellas on the ferry, you know, they weren't going. They get free liquor, I suppose. But they came across in hearses and came across dressed as nuns and priests. I met one of the fellas in Sydney when I was in the hospital down there. And he was talking, when he heard I was from Oxford, he was talking about coming across to the ferry. He was dressed as a priest. And he came across in a hearse. He said, I made millions of dollars. He said, I hadn't got a cent today. He said, I lost it as fast as I made it. But, oh yeah, the tricks they had, you know, to get liquor across.
Excuse me.
Oh no, grandmother Stewart never lived with us until she went to the States first. She was living down the country. My Uncle Duncan went to the States. He was the only one left home. And she went up and she was at Uncle Jim's. And Barbara and Margaret were small then. And Margaret used to spit at her.
Why?
She's just a bad kid. And grandmother didn't like it there at all. And
Did you say that Grandma didn't learn English until she was a teenager?
went to school, 5 years old or 6 years old.
What did she speak before that?
They spoke Gaelic at home. And my grandmother's Stewart was perfect. And so grandmother wasn't happy. Mom knew that, so Mom asked her to come home. So she came home. I think it was, I don't know if it was, I think it's when around the town Duncan was born. She came home on Grand Road, she was Grand Road. And then she came down to Port Hawkesbury. She was with she was quite smart then. I remember coming home from school and I tried to get in, couldn't get in. And picked up her bottle and broke the window. It didn't know. Grandmother was in alone. She didn't get to the door fast enough. And Grandmother Stewart died with pneumonia.
Now, was that your grandmother that's in that spinning at 100 picture?
That was my great-grandmother. That would be her mother. And she was a Campbell from over Milliken Watch.
Did you know her?
No, I didn't know her, but she used to, tell you a funny story, that she used to go up to Crandall Road to visit her granddaughter. See, my grandmother McDonald was her granddaughter. So she'd come, they'd drive her to West Bay. She'd get on the train at West Bay, she'd get off in Hawkesbury. And they'd pick her up in Port Hawkesbury. So one time in wintertime in January or so, she was then in her near 90, around 90 years old. She arrived, but they didn't know she was coming. She didn't tell them. And there was a fellow that had some kind of a slubbin, like, just a sleigh with boards on it, and he had a bench for himself to sit down. And he said he would come with me, but he said, I really don't have any place for you to sit properly. And he said the old thing to hang on to is an iron bar. Oh, she said, I don't mind that. So he said, all right. So he said when she got on the sleigh with him, he noticed she didn't have any mitts. And I guess it was a terrible cold night. And he said he was so cold, his hands were so cold, and he was so cold. He said he thought, I have to give her my mitts, but I'll freeze. So he offered her the mitts. Oh no, she said, I don't want them, I don't need your mitts. But she held on to the iron bar with her bare hands. He said, and he was just frozen. So anyway, she was, I don't know how long she stayed in the road that met them. And she came back and she was telling them that she had some fruit. She had some fruit up at Margaret's place. And Maggie's place it's called. And they said, what was it? Well, she didn't know. This was all in Geely. And she didn't know. Was it an orange? No. Was it a pear? No. Was it plums? No. And they started trying to think about fruit, Orange, And in those days, I guess fruit wasn't very plentiful. Oh, you're not going to let you put it down. So this said to her, what did it look like? So I guess she thought for a few minutes. It looked like what's in a man's pants. Banana. Yeah, I got a picture of